Hi everyone. Just wait another 30 seconds or so and then we'll kick off. Great, I'll just kick off. Thanks for joining this session on business finance. I'm Barry McCulloch. I work at the British Business Bank as a senior manager in Scotland and what we call the UK network team. I'll tell you all about who we are, what we do, and provide some advice on business finance options. First of all, I'm impressed that 4 of you, now 5, have made it, because a 45-minute session on business finance is hardly appealing. Let's be honest. and just to be upfront, the way that I'm going to run this session is I've got some slides. I'll talk you through them. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat. I'd much rather this be a conversation than a monologue. And I'll share my screen in a little bit. But before I do, a couple of bits of housekeeping. This session will be recorded. I see everyone's already doing this, but if you could keep your mics off, you can have your cameras on or off. It's entirely up to you. And I will just start sharing my screen in the next moment or so. I'm calling in from just outside Glasgow, a place called Netherley in East Renfrewshire, and it's a wet and windy day. I hope today has been good for you and for anyone that isn't on mute. If you could go on mute, that would be fab. So I'll just kick things off. As I said at the start, and my screen's just going crazy there, so apologies for that. I'm senior manager at the British Business Bank. I'll split this presentation into a few different parts. I'll tell you about what the bank is, what it does, to provide some context, and then talk you through the 2 main forms of business finance, them being debt and equity. Right from now off, I'll just say I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not financially regulated, so there's going to be a limit to what I do, and I will keep it a high level. That being said, if I can try and help or steer you towards help in the course of this session, then I'll do what I can. So for some reason my screen's going crazy, so apologies. So as you can see, and as you may be aware, the British Business Bank is the UK's economic development bank. And what that means is that the bank is UK government owned, but independently managed. And we were set up by the then coalition government in 2014 to provide more finance to smaller businesses who were seeking finance. And we've been doing that for a little under a decade or so. And our mission, as I try to press one button and lots, or press apologies again. If anyone's here from IT, if you could provide any advice on how I stop that for people. Okay, yeah. So I'm just going to carry on. The slides are acting a little oddly, but we'll carry on regardless. So if the person who just joined here can go on mute, that would be great. So I mean, as I say, we were set up to provide finance with a view to driving growth and prosperity across the UK, and obviously we've got an eye on the role in which finance can play in transitioning to a net zero economy. We're all about providing finance to smaller businesses. That's why we were set up, and that's what we do. I will aim to skip to the next slide, knowing that it might go a bit haywire, so bear with me. There we go. So every time it's going to do that. And one thing to understand about the British Business Bank is that we don't lend or invest directly. So you might not have heard of us. That's okay, because we work alongside delivery partners. So we provide capital to financiers and finance providers who are already in the market, be that a high street bank, a challenger bank, and non-bank lenders like angel investors or asset financiers. And there is every likelihood that you have thought about a product that is ours, you just don't know it, and that's fine. I think that what this session's about, trying to raise the profile of what the bank does and provide some practical information on some business finance options. So I will click ahead again, knowing that it will go free. So this is why we're founded. This is what guides us. We're here to increase the supply of finance. Up until March this year, we provided 12 billion of finance into the UK economy to 96,000 businesses. And we're all about trying to create a more diverse finance market to provide lending to those who need it. We're very focused on addressing imbalances in play, so be that rural Scotland or urban Northern Ireland. We've got a whole series of people who can provide advice and support, and all with a view to either helping businesses on their, what we would describe as their startup journey, their scale-up journey, or how they can stay ahead. I work in a department called the UK Network, and we are people who work across the UK in different patches. I work from home. The bank doesn't have an office in Scotland, and my job is to talk to business owners to raise a profile of what the bank does, but also to talk to business advisors, intermediaries, investors, and others to understand what's happening in the finance markets. To share that insight with my colleagues, and also to share best practice across the UK, all with a view to trying to strengthen local finance ecosystems. And excellent. As I press one slide moves forward, so that's great. Apologies for any confusion. Before I dive into the meat of the presentation itself, I wanted to just give you an idea of what the bank has done in Scotland. So as you can see, we've provided over 300 million of finance to over 6,000 SMEs, and we've provided over 6,000 loans. I'll tell you a little bit more about our startup loan program, which is fantastic. And all of that excludes what the bank did during the first year and a half of the COVID-19 pandemic, where we designed and oversaw the distribution of, in Scotland, £4.5 billion of COVID loans. So first of all, thank you for coming. This is we're going to get into business finance options, and I've prepared this for you from the perspective of A, a non-financial individual, and B, for those who might not be financially inclined. I'm going to try and demystify, use plain language, and leave you thinking that business finance might be something for you. Where to start? I mean, I found this when I was running a consultancy business myself. You know, you're doing so many things as a business owner, and finance is just yet another thing. It is a world which can be time-consuming to navigate. It can be quite stressful, challenging. It is replete with jargon that you may not be aware of. And if you don't come from that financial background, it can be difficult to know what options are available, what's right for your business at the right stage, and how to apply. And the good news is that there's a lot of free information available online from the British Business Bank's Finance Hub and other sources such as Find Business Support, that latter one quite good for grants in the Scottish market. More good news is the small business lending market is changing all the time. There's new lenders, new options hitting the market frequently, and I say that because obviously we're about to go into an economic situation that is let's be honest, fairly challenging, especially for sectors who might be operating in B2C. Before we start talking about debt, I wanted to just roughly summarise what a lender might be looking for. This is somewhat applicable if you're thinking about equity, but equity, of course, a very different a very different option. But in terms of what a lender might be looking for, from their perspective, it's about mitigating the risk of loss. So they're looking to back a safe bet. They're looking to back good, viable businesses. So they're going to scrutinize your financials, your financial performance, your forecasting. They're obviously going to look as a lender would for a household trying to access a loan or a mortgage. They're going to look at your ability to repay, and they're going to look at what you've got coming in, what you've got going out, and they'll also want to know that there's a real purpose for the lending, and to really scrutinise the why. Why do you want this loan? Why do you need to extend that overdraft? Is it to purchase an asset? Is it to access working capital because of a cash flow issue? And obviously, from the lender's perspective, they're in this to secure a return in the shape of repayments, including interest repayments, but also setup fees and renewal fees. Debt finance is the most widely used form of finance by businesses in Scotland and the rest of the UK. And over the next few minutes, I'll spend a little bit of time talking about it and two of the main typical debt products. And so we're all on the same page. Debt finance is where a business borrows a sum of money or an asset and pays it back. Sorry, could someone not move my slide on? There we go. And pays it back with interest over an agreed duration. And if you're not on mute, it'd be great if you muted. And the typical debt products, these are by no means the only. There are many, many products out there. I thought it best not to include all of them, but the four main types are loans, overdrafts, asset finance, and invoice finance. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about business loans and asset finance. I think the latter has a lower profile and could be a good option for your business. Business loans, obviously one of the most popular options for businesses looking to raise finance. It's something that as individuals we understand from a personal perspective, and so often many businesses who are looking to raise finance will look at the loan market to see if they can find the right product. They come in many different shapes and sizes and fee structures, but rather go into it too much, what I wanted to do is summarise the two main types. Firstly, secured loans. This is where a business has to use an asset from its balance sheet as security, typically an owned property. A secured loan typically will have lower interest rates because of that security aspect. You also have unsecured loans. This is where a business can borrow without using assets as security. That being said, a personal guarantee will often be required. That's to say that if the business defaults on that, the individual will be liable. And because it is seen by the lender as a riskier form of lending, it will attract higher interest rates. At the British Business Bank, one of our most popular products is our startup loans. We've delivered over 6,000 startup loans in the Scottish market and provided over 50 million of finance for smaller businesses, from those who have started an outdoor sports business in Newtonmore right through to a new Portuguese patisserie place in the West End of Glasgow. These are loans of £500 to 25,000. These are personal loans for a commercial purpose. They are payable over 1 to 5 years with a fixed interest rate, which is usually substantially lower than what you will be able to find on the private market. The great thing about this product, albeit you might expect me to say this, is that not only do you access the finance from startup loans, but you also get wraparound support in the form of mentoring for 12 months after receiving funding. Our delivery partners in Scotland are DSL Business Finance and Transmit Startups, and they distribute this form of finance for the bank in Scotland. This is a summary of the impact of these loans. We provide 2 startup loans in Scotland a day. It's got a really good track record with founders and business owners who can often find it difficult to access finance because of structural issues within the finance markets themselves, be it female founders or those from an ethnic minority to background. The average loan amount, typically around £9,000. And one thing to bear in mind about this product is that due to its recent extension, you can also access a second startup loan. And if you're set up as a limited company, you can access more than one. Moving on to asset finance, this is something that I was less aware of before I joined the bank, but the more I listen to the providers, the more I think it's a really great option for SMEs. This is a form of lending where a business uses existing assets like property, machinery or stock, or perhaps even intellectual property as security against finance. This goes without saying. An obvious but key requirement for a business considering this is that they have to have assets as security, because the asset provider will establish the value of said assets, and then the amount of finance you receive will be based on those assets. And so a good example of that could be a farmer who might want to diversify what they do. They might be looking at the current situation and might want to move into the accommodation space, or build a farm shop. And what they could do is they could approach an asset financier and get a valuation on their tractors and then withdraw funding based on the value of those assets. Key benefits include the fact that asset finance is flexible, so very few restrictions on spend. You can receive a decision quickly. Some providers in Scotland can authorise your application and that money can be in your account within a week. It can also be used alongside other finance options, so it's complementary, which is quite unusual. And the other thing is that the repayment terms can be fixed, so there's a sense of predictability, which, if you're starting out in business or indeed running an existing one, is something that's really quite important as you watch what's coming in and out. Moving on to the wonderful world of equity finance. This is a much more nuanced form of finance, which takes longer to receive and is best suited for growth-focused businesses. It's not right for everyone, and it's when a business raises money by selling shares or stakes in their business to external investors. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but like the debt finance, I'm not talking through every single option of equity finance. I've listed the 4 main types there. I'll focus on 2 just to give you an idea of what it is and what it involves. But you can see the 4 main types, from angel investment through to equity. I'm going to focus on option 1 and 2. Angel investment is where private investors, who are often called business angels or angels for short, invest their own money into early stage businesses to help them grow. And the investors will either act individually as high net worth individuals, or as a group, or if you've been doing a bit of Googling or indeed you've been trying to raise equity finance, you'll be familiar with the term syndicate. So an angel syndicate is an angel group. Angels invest in exchange for a stake of your business that typically ranges from 10 to 25%, and they will look to form a strong relationship with the founders to ensure the business thrives. They also, as a result of that stake, have, depending on the arrangement, a degree of input into the future direction of the company. Angels invest in businesses that A, have the potential for quick growth, and B, they're always going to have an eye on a high return on their investment. So from their perspective, if I put in X, what can I get out in 3 to 5 years? Something longer. Usually angels invest between 50,000 and 750,000 in an investment. From looking at the Scottish market over the last year, I would say the average amount invested by angels has increased substantially, and that it's not unusual for the average amount to be around 200,000 or so, just to give you an idea of what angels do in the Scottish market. Moving on to venture capital, like angel investors, VCs as they're called, they invest in early stage businesses to help them grow. I mean, the key difference between the two, if you're trying to conceptualize it, is that rather than using their own funds, venture capitalists use money belonging to larger institutions such as pension funds. VCs are most interested in businesses that have a clear track record of success, so not necessarily pre-revenue, a potential for rapid growth in global market share, and the potential to generate a large profit for their investment, typically within a 3 to 5 year timescale. And VCs will usually invest between £750,000 to £10 million in an investment, and can often be found in tech, life science sectors, given the potential for high growth within those economic sectors. I'm almost finished, so we can start the Q&A. Before I finish, I wanted to do two other things. First, to flag that everything that I have talked about today and described can be found in the British Business Bank's Finance Hub. Do check it out. It's full of great resources and find information about the finance you need, about the different types of finance and what might be right at the stage of your business journey. And the second thing I couldn't leave without talking about a campaign that we will be kicking off on the 7th of November. We'll be running the UK's first Business Finance Week, and it's quite simply about running a series of events, activities, and blogs and articles across the UK with a view to providing information to smaller businesses about their finance options. So we're looking to raise awareness and help business owners understand their options. And key market will, of course, be the SMEs themselves. And you might see as you pay more attention to what the British Business Bank does, a whole variety of different options and events. I'll share a link to the campaign itself. But before I finish up, I thought I'd give you an idea of how the week will be themed. We've got 5 days, 5 themes. And so on the Monday, we'll be doing sessions on how to fund your startup, through to the Friday, where we'll be looking at green finance. On the Thursday, myself and other colleagues within the bank in Wales and Northern Ireland will be running a session with the Federation of Small Businesses about understanding debt finance options. And I will leave that there and take any questions. And I will stop sharing my screen. There we go. I hope that was useful. Do pop in any questions that you have in the chat box, or any observations if you want to chat about your business and what you're thinking of. Also, if you don't have anything, feel free to drop off and gain an extra 20 minutes. This part of the session is about you and how the bank might be able to provide help and support. So I'll wait here for any questions, and if there aren't any, I'll just pop myself on mute, and I'll just wait for anything popping into the chat box. And as I said, if you don't have anything, then feel free to drop off. I see Danielle raising her hand. Yeah, go on, Danielle.
Hi, what's the link for the Business Finance Week? Because I'm quite interested in that.
Yeah, just so I will share a link just now. It's something that just went live a couple of days ago, and I mean the idea is that you've got these thematic events that organisations run. You've got Small Business Saturday and another International Women's Day, and we wanted to do an equivalent event all around business finance, basically to try and equip business owners with the right tools to understand their options, because there's a lot out there. So if you just bear with me, I'll just get that link for you just now.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much.
Where are you talking to from?
Scotland, Edinburgh.
Edinburgh, great. What's your are you a business owner? Are you starting a business?
Kind of starting a business. I'm a personal trainer, and I'm looking to open like a kind of fitness retreat. So that'd be great. I've kind of started off like got my business plan. I've like started out like my business as personal training. Also like have another business. Like I've got a chip shop as well. It's in my parents' name, but I do that as well. So I come from a business background, and then I was a kitchen manager and ran kitchens for 10 years too. So I'm a bit of a kind of like to do business. So this is my next adventure.
So what led you to move from chip shops into what you're planning now? What led you to make that jump?
I was just really interested in fitness. I was more actually interested in it for myself. So then I decided to do a personal training course, like just a kind of short one. And then I started looking into it a wee bit more. And then my friends were like quite interested, and they're like, "Oh, you'd be quite good at doing this," because I started like kind of practicing with my friends. And it was more for myself because I was just interested in about fitness, like getting fitter, like about myself and nutrition. And then I ended up just doing the full course and paid for the full course, and then just became a personal trainer, and then just started doing it freelance. And then I used to go to fitness retreats as well, and then that's kind of where my passion came from, because I used to go to one like every year, and I was like, this is amazing, like I could do this all the time. And then I was like, actually I could just make this like my career. So then I just kind of started doing the building blocks, and I was like, right, I need my personal training qualification, and then I need to do the next thing and the next thing. And this is like, I'm just looking at finance options now and going to speak to Business Gateway about my plans. So yeah,
that's the good first port of call, as people might have seen and heard previously. It is free. It's always worth. I think if you can get something for free, then use it. The conversation, it might be good. It might be less good, but there's nothing lost, because you don't have to pay for that advice, and it can be really useful just having a chat about where you are, where you might be going, and what your options might be in that regard.
yeah, cool, awesome. Thank you very much.
No, you're really welcome. I've got a question from Lee, and look, it's really you're not alone, Lee, in finding yourself in a situation where you've got your business credit card, you've got your business loan, you've got your bounce back, and the different payments absolutely add up. I think they are organisations that can help with restructuring, but it's all very specific to those businesses and those personal situations. I'll pop my email into the email box, and then we can maybe just exchange emails, and I can see I'll see what I can do. I mean, so I suppose for you, Lee, it's just about, given where we are and where the market might be shifting, how can you maybe restructure this finance accordingly? Stan, how does personal credit scores circumstances affect business finance? Very much so, Stan. So if it's a bit like if you're trying to get a personal loan or a personal mortgage. If your credit score isn't as good, then the amount of interest that you pay will increase. And it's depending on what the business's situations and circumstances are. It can have an impact to the extent that the lender might not lend to you, depending on how they evaluate the risk. And there is certainly something in the finance market just now where some of your more traditional lenders, in light of the economic conditions, are starting to restrict credit, and be really careful about how they provide additional borrowing to certain types of businesses in certain sectors. Yeah, crowdfunding, Stan, not a bad option. I think if you don't have that knowledge of crowdfunding, I'm not saying it's something that can't be done. I mean, there was There was a panelist on a session earlier today who crowdfunded about £10,000, and that let her get her business off the ground. But I do hear a lot of business owners trying to attempt to crowdfund, which in some ways is a more modern way of trying to raise finance from family, friends, and maybe those slightly distant. Worth giving it a shout. There are some options out there. There are also some platform lenders who provide funding, likes of funding circles, or one you might have heard of. Exactly. I mean, look, you make a very good point. If you come from a fairly normal background, you don't have assets other than perhaps the home that you have a mortgage over. It can be quite difficult to get that finance, and I mean that's partly why the British Business Bank was established, to make sure that good businesses got off the ground if they required finance. And the system is far from perfect. I think it's getting better. I think more and more lenders are coming to the market. It can just be time consuming and complicated to find out who they are and what's on offer for them, or even just the opportunity to have a chat with an advisor, because if you're not turning over a certain amount, certain providers just don't want to hear from you. Question from Frank, asking people if they're looking for a media partner for finance events. At the bank, we are not, but I know that you're a TV producer and filmmaker. So good try, quite right. We're not at this point. We're not going down the media partners route. This is a kind of year one endeavor. We're just trying to see what the demand is like and what uptake we get. And year two, maybe think differently about what we do as we kind of scale up. No problem. Happy to. And I can download the chat data as well, so I don't need to remember names. Pauline, what happens if you cannot pay back a loan, and how do you pay back the debt if your business does not take off? I mean, that's partly why so many businesses, especially at the start of their journey, are quite reticent to taking out external finance. Don't take out debt if you don't need to. There's certainly an ingrained culture within Scotland where they're very risk averse towards external debt. And prior to COVID, it was very normal for round about a half of all businesses in Scotland to have never accessed external finance, and viewed that as something that they didn't necessarily want to do. But I suppose what happens if you cannot pay back a loan, it depends. But if there's a personal guarantee attached to that loan, then the lender will be looking to the individual who runs that business, or individuals who run the business, to get repayments, and how you pay back the debt and get your business to take off. It's a really tough balancing act, and I think that's why lots of startups try, and certainly if they're not in the tech sector, try and minimise their exposure to debt, generate some revenues, try and access informal forms of finance. That might even be using personal savings, even credit cards, just to see how far you go, rather than exposing yourself unnecessarily to risks and credit defaults. Tartan plus Tweed, great name. What about Link Scotland? So Link Scotland are the umbrella organisation for angel investors in Scotland. They're fantastic. They're a bit like a Chamber of Commerce or Federation of Small Businesses for the angels. They're a good conduit into the world of equity finance. And I speak to people at Link regularly. Slightly different from UK BEA, the UK body for business angels, but always worth following them on LinkedIn, dropping them an email to see what they can do. Thomas, I'm currently doing a plan and finance application with BBB. I finance everything myself today, and I need cash flow injection to keep going. Is there an invoice finance option? There might be. I don't know enough about the application that you've made. Invoice finance is a really good option, probably preferable to overdrafts if you can access it either through your bank lender or your non-bank lender. Thomas, if you want to share your email, or I'll put my email in the chat. I'm more than happy to see what I can do. And before I forget, I will share my email just now, so that if anyone wants to get in touch, they can. Give me 1 second. No, you're very welcome, Beth. Thanks for joining. If there's any more questions, drop them in the chat. I've also just provided my email, so feel free to get in touch, and I will try and signpost to the right source of support. I'll leave it a couple of more minutes to see if there's any more questions. Any burning questions that you might have. Now's your time. Any banks offering free business banking? Yes, but I think I said this in a panel session this morning, a startup session. Apart from co-op, yeah, very good. Getting access to and opening a business banking account from a traditional lender can be quite time consuming at the moment. You may get better option from challenger banks, online banks, of which from this morning, you've got Monzo Bank that someone was mentioning, Starling, a whole host of challenger banks that are out there. I suppose whether it's a challenger bank or a traditional bank lender, it's just about finding the right match, not always assuming that the bank that you bank with personally will be the bank that you do things commercially with. When I fell into self-employment a number of years ago and ran a consultancy business, it took me a wee while to get a business account. At that point, I just couldn't. I couldn't really see. I couldn't really see the need for it, but it was very informal. It was freelancing. But yeah, there is. There is. I think there is something to be said for looking at your options, getting in touch with banks and seeing what the right fit is. Co-op's a popular one that's also offered free if you decide to become a Federation of Small Business member. And other trade bodies will have options available as well. In the time that we've got left, we've got a few minutes left. Does anyone want to expand the conversation and talk about how their business is, how it's doing? Just want to give you the opportunity to raise a question that might not be specific to business finance or seek the advice of others on the line. I'll leave it maybe another minute or two, and if you've got other commitments, feel free to leave the chat. I'll stay just in case there's other questions that come through, but really enjoyed the chat. Hope you found the presentation useful. I will be sharing my presentation with the organisers. So if you've not written everything down, don't worry about it. I'm sure there'll be a way to get that to you via the event hub. You're very welcome, Pauline. And I'm just quite impressed that I managed almost 55 minutes and I didn't cough because I've been coughing all morning because of my young children. Just the way of it, isn't it, kids? No, you're welcome as well, Mandy. Thanks for tuning in. You too, Tartan Plus Tweed. Should have worn my tweed jacket. That was a missed opportunity, clearly. And there we go, right and true. I hope you enjoy the rest of Business Finance Week. Lots of great events planned for the rest of the week, and just check out the event program, dip in and out, what interests you. No, you're welcome, Lee. And enjoy the rest of your day. You're welcome as well, Thomas. And I'm just gonna take us to here, so I'll hang tight. I don't want to end unless we're bang on time, just in case someone decides to join for the last 5 minutes or so. Again, don't feel compelled to stay on. See, there's a session in 20 minutes on how to reduce your energy bill. Might need to tune into that just for personal household reasons as well. There's also a networking session that should be good. That kicks off at 3:45 today, and I think looking at the rest of the events for the remainder of the week, couple that I think you might want to check out. There's a keynote speak from Caroline Curry, the Chief Executive of Women's Enterprise Scotland. Caroline's a really great speaker, really passionate. Pretty good way to start your day, actually. And it follows a panel webinar around the challenges and opportunities for women in business. And that'll be, I'm sure, led by the great folk at Women's Enterprise Scotland. And let me see. So let me go to the last day, see if there's anything. We've got the keynote speak from Scottish Government's Minister for Business, which will be interesting for you as business owners to tune into. And there's an interesting panel webinar about digital adoption and business transformation, opportunities and barriers, and Business Gateway obviously being a kind of key cog in the delivery of the Digiboost scheme. If you haven't checked out Digiboost, worth checking out. And that takes us to the end of the week. British Business Bank are sponsoring this event, so we're also an exhibitor. So if you've got a burning question or won forms, drop me an email or come along to the virtual stand. We can have a chat. I'll just go on mute because we've got about a minute left. Thanks a lot for your time, everyone.